Hi everybody, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling, and I said earlier this year that we're going to be doing some different things with the show throughout the year, and I meant it. And as promised, my very, very special guest co-host, my lovely wife, Sarah. Hello.
Hello.
Sarah's agreed to be on this show, and we've had some fun putting it together, and we are going to talk about our 10 of our favorite singles from 1992, because I tend to talk about albums. Sarah wants to talk about singles for the most part.
Yes, and that's primarily because I don't own a lot of albums at this point in time. It's something that Tim and I talk about a lot, actually, because he's a collector. I am not, per se, but I am a great lover of music in general, and I love singles, let's be honest.
And this is going to be especially fun because there's going to be some music talked about on this episode that's never been talked about on TVC, but I think it's going to be great. So Sarah and I each picked a list and got some chart stats, but I'll let Sarah start us off with the couple that just missed her top 10. So what have you got for us?
I don't even know that we want to say that they just missed the top 10. I think that I tried really hard to adhere to Tim's rules, since this is Tim's Vinyl Confessions, it's not Sarah's channel.
Yeah, she thinks I have a lot of rules.
You do have a lot of rules. So I struggled initially to even... I had a massive list of like 30 songs when we went through.
Right.
And then I edited tremendously because Tim's criteria is that the album has to come out in 1992. So then I went through and made some additional notes to stick to that. And my list of 12 are 12 songs that I've got left for singles. They are in no particular order, so they're not necessarily my favorite. But anyway, so at 11 and 12 are these two songs. So I have TLC, What About Your Friends, which peaked at number 7 on the Billboard charts in February of 1992, and that is from the album Ooh on the TLC Tip.
And that was their first, right?
I think so.
That was their new band when that came out.
I believe so. I really enjoyed the early TLC as a young person. And the other one was Ain't Too Proud to Beg, which I also really enjoy. And this is before Waterfalls and all that stuff, when it got overplayed, and I don't enjoy that as much. And the videos too, I have to say, for TLC particularly, I enjoyed them at that point in time.
The word that comes to my mind is colorful.
Very.
Yeah.
Well, it's hip-hop, ultimately. But I think, for me, anyway, a lot of these songs are very much driven by the power of the music video, too. I don't know if you talk about that a whole lot, necessarily, on your channel.
No, actually, no. But this, yeah.
But for me, at this point in time, and I know you were, too, as a child, but I would have been a huge consumer of the music video forum. And a lot of these I really loved, and TLC is amongst them. And speaking of great music videos, I think that part of my love of Shakespeare's sister, Stay, which peaked at number 4 on Billboard and Canada, and I've got noted too, it was a number 1 in the UK. The album, which I would not have known, and thanks to Wikipedia for coming up with this, it was Hormonally Yours, which came out in February of 92. But I love this video. I think that...
very dramatic.
Highly. Yeah. And the makeup and the stylization.
Was it based on a story or something? Or like a...
That I don't know.
Vampire?
I honestly don't know. But I love it. And I know this is PG, so I'm trying...
Now, Shakespeare's sister, wasn't one of those girls from Bananarama?
Yes.
This was not like Bananarama.
Siobhan, I don't know the last name, but
Fahey?
yes. Maybe. She was married to Dave Stewart, right?
Right. This was very dark compared to Bananarama.
Yeah, but they had their fun, quirky videos,
They had I Don't Care, and that's the only other song.
Yeah, but their videos, like, they did the Venus one, remember? They did... No. Which is the one they had different costumes?
Oh, Bananarama, yeah. They had like a devil costume and yeah.
Yeah.
But musically.
Theatrical.
Yeah.
Oh, musically darker. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I just have one. I'm going to call it an honorable mention, and the only reason I call it an honorable mention is it's actually a song from 1975, but the exact same version was re-released in 1992, and not only did it become a hit, it introduced a great band. It reintroduced a great band to the world, and I'm talking about Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. It appeared on the Wayne's World soundtrack, that iconic scene, the headbanging scene. It brought that song back, and it brought the band back, because from 1985 on, Queen were a dead issue in North America. And the song went all the way to number 2 on its second time around. First time it only hit number 9 in the States. This time it hit number 2. It went to number 16 on the mainstream rock. And their new label in the States, Hollywood Records, wisely put this compilation out called Classic Queen, which is kind of like a version of their Greatest Hits 2, but since they didn't have as many hits post 1981, when the first Greatest Hits came out, Hollywood didn't see the point of putting Greatest Hits 2 out exactly as it was. So they retooled the lineup a little bit. That had, for me, when I picked this up and I saw that not only did it have Bohemian Rhapsody on it, but it had Under Pressure, it had I Want It All, had Radio Gaga. This was like only the second thing I got from Queen, and I listened to this CD a lot. So Bohemian Rhapsody it can't be understated how all of a sudden the Queen album started selling again, where they just they couldn't get arrested in the States and in Canada, unfortunately, and they had stopped touring many years before. Unfortunately, Freddie Mercury died just a few months before, and but that scene in the movie and I think that they know it, because I think that's why they gave Mike Myers that small part in the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, which has a fun reference to kids banging their heads to songs. And
it really
like
was
that.
exceptional, though, that moment in film as well as for music. And I mean, that particular CD, I think my mom even had that at that point in time. So
it's pretty hard to hear that heavy part of Bohemian Rhapsody and not think about the headbanging scene.
It's ingrained in our
yeah.
memory at this point in time.
So
anyway, you've got another. Is that your only honorable?
That's my only honorable. So now
you didn't have as many as me.
No.
I don't think that you had to narrow as much as I did. 1992 was not Tim's favorite year.
I graduated from high school in 1992. It's not because of that, but anyone who's watched this show will notice a distinct lack of grunge being talked about on this show, and that was really the main year that things started to change in mainstream rock music. Although I have to say, I'm not seeing a lot of grunge on your list. Really, I'm seeing a little bit of alternative rock.
But here's the thing, because of your rules.
We'll explain that in a second.
Tim's rules. I think I had to. Oh, I did make a list. So some of the albums that I had loved and would have included. So I do have Nirvana listed, because Nevermind came out in 91, and when I was doing a little research, it came out in September of 91, but I think it was number 1 in January of 1992.
So part of my rules are, I do like to adhere to, if we're talking about a year, it had to have come out in that year. And Sarah picked out a lot of singles that, yes, were hits and were on the charts in 92, but actually came off of albums that came out in 1991. And
can I mention them?
Yes. Sure.
So some of these ones had, for me, some songs that would have continued to have been impactful for me personally in 92. So I have Boyz II Men, which I bet has never been listed on Tim's Vinyl Confessions before.
Except for when Marley found the cassette tape when we went to Portland.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So Cooley High Harmony came out in 91, and Motown Philly was one of my favorites off of that one, and End of the Road, etc. And Mr. Big's Lean Into It came out in 91, which, of course, To Be With You is from
that album made our Best of 1991 list, but yeah.
I'm mentioning it again. Because this particular song was number 1, though, in 92, right?
Yeah.
Toad the Wet Sprocket, this album, Fear, 1991, I think it was one of my first CDs, and I do still have it, even though I don't listen to CDs anymore. But I love this album. I love pretty much every song on it. So All I Want and Walk on the Ocean are 2 of the singles from that album, but I could go on and on about it. I still enjoy it and listen to it on my Apple Music. U2 Octung Baby came out in November of 91, and I noted 2 of my favorite ones here, which would be Mysterious Ways and Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses. And again, Nirvana came out in September. Nevermind, sorry, came out in 91. And I've noted Van Halen as well. Because right now, it came out in 91 though.
Yeah,
Unlawful
but right
Paranormal
now the
Knowledge.
video came out in 92.
Right, and
Yeah.
I love that song and love that video.
So a couple of great albums there that I would agree with, Mr. Big and Van Halen, but they came out, alas, they came out in 91. So
yeah, so I can't talk about
so now you could get to talk about one of your favorites. One of your all-time favorites.
So I got this for Christmas. And this is Sting. In this household, he gets referred to as my beloved Sting.
It's true.
It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I really do love him. What can I say about Sting? I mean, I don't think that I realized how much I loved him until later. This has come with age. Because he was very much like an adult contemporary artist, I think, at this point in time. And I don't know how refined my tastes were. How old was I? 15?
Well, you would have turned
14,
15 that
14,
year.
15. Yeah. So I would not have been lusting after Sting at this point in time. That was said for you, Tim.
So Sarah does have a few CDs that I dug around in and found some. Now, this is Sting's 10 Summoner's Tales album. This came out in 1993, but it does contain a song on it that was originally released in 92 from the soundtrack of
Lethal Weapon 3.
Lethal Weapon 3.
Which came out in 92.
Yeah.
And the song It's Probably Me reached number 20 on Billboard and number 12 in Canada. And I do really enjoy this one.
Now, that's credited to Sting and Eric Clapton, but I think he just probably plays guitar on it. It's not a vocal duet.
I don't believe so, no. But yeah, I just really enjoy it. I don't know what else there is to say. I can't really... This isn't one that I would rhapsodize about, necessarily.
So my number 10, or the one I'm going to pick at number 10, is a band that had been away for about 5 years at this point, and it's still to this day the last album they ever put out. One of my favorite Canadian bands, Triumph. This is their album Edge of Excess, which most people don't like. This is the album. Rick Emmett had gone by this point. He'd started a solo career. This has Phil X on guitar, who is now a member of another band that we'll be talking about later on. This album came and went. It probably could have, if it had come out 2 or 3 years earlier, might have done more. But it was not. It was just basic hard rock, and was not the time period for it. But the lead song on here and the lead single was called Child of the City, and it actually hit number 30 on the Billboard mainstream rock chart. So there was a little bit of an appetite there for this band and this type of music. Also, the label this was on, which was Victory Music, went under. So when your record label goes under, there goes your promotion. So that's my number 10. What do we got next? Oh, we've got some CanCon, some Canadian content.
We do. I just want to know, there's no overlap between us on these, right? There's no overlap.
There is no overlap. The closest to overlap is your 1991 honorable mention.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. So for CanCon, at number 9, I have Katie Lang's Constant Craving, which reached number 38 on Billboard and number 8 in Canada. And I was kind of surprised that it wasn't higher in Canada. It's from the album Ingenue, which came out in March of 92. What can I say about I still really enjoy the song. I probably enjoy it more now than perhaps I would have at the time. And that's what's interesting as you go through trying to make these lists, is that some of these songs I loved then and I still love now, and there's the power of nostalgia, but there are some that I probably enjoy more now as an adult when you look back.
I would have thought it would have done better in the States too. It got a ton of airplay, and it was a big album for her. Seems to me this was her first album that wasn't country, because she was considered a country artist, almost like a country rockabilly kind of artist, or very traditionalist country. Because I remember my mother had her album Shadowland that came out in '88, and that was very traditional, like Patsy Cline type of.
I couldn't even tell you what the songs were on that necessarily, but I think that for me anyway, this really showcased what a great singer that she is, or was. I don't know. I'm assuming she's still performing now.
And this song also, she wrote this with Ben Mink. Rush fans know who Ben Mink is. And they also got a credit 5 years later when the Rolling Stones put out a song called Has Anybody Seen My Baby, which borrowed a great deal of the melody, it was determined, from Constant Craving. So now Katie Lang and Ben Mink get a piece of that Stones song.
Well, that's good. I don't know if this was the year or not, but there was a famous photograph of Katie Lang with
Cindy Crawford?
Cindy Crawford.
I think it was. Was it Rolling Stone?
It was, I think so, but it was a very fashiony,
Yeah.
just a tremendous photograph, really. I loved it myself.
Okay, so my next one I'm going to talk about is a band that did well to put on an album in '92 and actually go gold because they were the anti-grunge. I'm talking about Warrant, and this is not the same Warrant that brought you Cherry Pie or Heaven, even though it's the same band. This album's called Dog Eat Dog, came out in the fall of '92 on Columbia, and this was a lot heavier for them, and it was actually the first Warrant album I actually paid much attention to. And the lead track, a song called Machine Gun, went to number 36 on the mainstream rock chart. And I never really did get too much into the early Warrant stuff. I do have the best of CD, and I like it now more than I used to. But this is a really, really good hard rock album. And if anybody, likes the heavier stuff, they might be surprised at how heavy they got on this. Wasn't the right time for them, but they still managed a gold album at a time when these types of bands were way, way on the outs. So that's my next one. And
So
next
they
up,
still had their long hair, though, right?
oh yes,
Here?
yeah.
That's what
They
I was
didn't.
looking
They
for.
didn't go full on. They did do a couple of what I would call grunge albums with Ultraphobic and Belly to Belly, and my personal feelings, that's a mistake a lot of these bands made. You stick to your guns and make the music that you became known for. But although Ultraphobic I thought was quite good. So next up, I would say this is another album that not only do you still have, but I think you like most of the songs on it.
I love this album. And I think, it's the Gin Blossoms.
Yeah, New Miserable Experience. And even though these songs didn't really make an impact till 1993, this album was released in 1992 on
It was
A&M Records.
in August. So I chose the song Hey Jealousy because it was probably the first one.
I think so.
That
First
I
one
would
I
have been
remember
familiar
hearing.
So number 25 on Billboard, number 4 on the mainstream rock charts, and number 39 in Canada, which is kind of shocking, to be honest. But
Got a lot of airplay. Like
I'm assuming it must
the
have.
popularity it sort of belies the chart position sort of belie the popularity because everybody knew that song. It was everywhere.
I know a lot of the songs off. And
Very 90s
quite
in
a
the writing inside of the CD. They became harder and harder to read, and they were using all these artsy camera angles.
But as I go through, so Hey Jealousy is on here. Found Out About You.
Yeah, that was a big hit. Till I
Allison
Fall Away.
Road, Until I
Yeah.
Fall Away.
Allison Road is funny because when we have to take the pets to the vet, it's literally on Allison Road.
It
And then
was.
I always think of that song.
They've moved since, but yes, agreed.
Okay,
She lost
so
some
my
time.
next one, a little bit different for me. I have to thank Matt for getting me into this band. I don't know if he realizes it. He did. It just kind of happened that way. This is Faith No More's 1992 album, Angel Dust, and this was the follow-up to their breakthrough album, The Real Thing, which had Epic on it, which was a top 5 single. So this is actually the 2015 remaster, so it's got 2 CDs on it. But the lead single from this album was called Midlife Crisis, which in typical Faith No More fashion managed to be heavy and melodic and catchy and strange all at the same time. And it got to number 32 on the mainstream rock chart, went all the way to number 1 on the modern rock chart, charted at number 10 in the UK, and peaked at number 77 in Canada. And of course, it's got Mike Patton's incredible vocals, always teetering on the brink of insanity. But there's some great songs on this too, like A Small Victory. This is actually, since it's the remastered and the deluxe version, it's got their cover of the Commodore's Easy on here.
Which
So,
I love.
but yeah, Midlife Crisis. That's the next one I wanted to talk about.
I do love their version of Easy, and I just to say it too, I loved Epic at the time. Like, I know it's not on in the '92 era, but they are very melodic for that kind of band, I have to say, in my opinion.
I'm just looking. There's some live songs on here. No, that's not one of them.
Okay. So number 7 for me is Elton John's The One, which is from the album The One, which came out in June of '92. And the single reached number 9 on Billboard and number 1 in Canada, which doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Because I think it got a lot of airplay, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And kind of had, I think I recall the video as being very lovely and peaceful, and I don't know if it was, some of it was on the beach or no.
I think there was a couple, and they're like rotating as he's singing.
I don't remember.
I don't know, but it was, you know, Sir Elton John, who I think, I want to say that it's sometime in 95 or 96 he received some sort of honorary something or other for having a song in the top 40
in every decade.
Not just every decade, but every single year since he started having hits, which is quite something. And yeah, the one also had, what else was on that album? I believe that had the song The Last Song, which was about the boy dying of AIDS and his father comes to see him. You might recognize it if you heard it.
Okay.
I don't know if there was a Simple Life. That was the other single off of that one. But yeah, the title song was the biggest hit.
Yeah.
Next, another one of Matt's favorite bands. He'll be happy to see this. Faith No More, followed by INXS. This is Welcome to Wherever You Are, their 1992 album, which I like. Before I get into the song, I like what they did with this because anyone that's a big INXS fan knows they used, it's based on the R.E.M boys band founded in Dublin in 1872, and they used different artwork featuring this boys band on the different formats. So the CD has this picture, the record just has that single boy on it, and the cassette has a different picture again on the bottom. And they had a few hits off of this one. Probably the biggest one was Not Enough Time, but I like the song Taste It. Kind of had a risque video, if I recall correctly, but I was surprised that this song didn't do, I remember hearing it a lot more than its chart position would say. It's number 5 on Modern Rock, number 101 on the US pop charts, which I don't even know why they bother going below 100, but and number 21 in the UK. I could not find how it did in Canada. INXS typically charted higher in Canada than they did in the States. They've always done very well up here. So I'm not sure where it reached up here. I know Much Music played that video a lot, and it's just a fun song. It's INXS, it's funky, it's catchy, and that's the one that I chose.
I think it's because Canadians like Australians.
Could be.
Number 6, I have George Michael's Too Funky.
I honestly forgot about this song until you wrote it down. I'm like, oh, right, he had that one, because it wasn't from an album.
No,
well, it wasn't from one of his albums.
No, he did not release it on an album. He released it as a single, and it was also on the Red Hot and Dance.
Wasn't that an AIDS charity
CD?
Yeah.
Which came out in 92. So this single reached number 10 on the Billboard and number 6 in Canada, and I loved this music video. That's primarily, I think, and
didn't this have like models on a catwalk?
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
Yes. It continued with his
like freedom kind of.
Very much.
Although he was in this one a little bit.
He was, but I mean, I loved this video. It was very fun. It's got that fashion element. It's great.
So next up is a band that this song I couldn't find any chart placement for, but it was definitely a single, and I definitely remember hearing it. Band is Toto. This is their album Kingdom of Desire, which came out in 1992. Didn't come out in the States till 1993. And the song that I picked was Don't Chain My Heart, which was, I think it was the only single off of this one. I'm not sure. This was the last album they did with Jeff Porcaro. He died sadly, suddenly, at the age of 38, August of 1992. This is much more of a rock album than they'd been doing. It's pretty guitar driven. Steve Lukather sings everything on this, and guitar playing, as always, is awesome. Don't Chain My Heart kind of has like a Bryan Adams Can't Stop This Thing We Started kind of beat to it. It's kind of a shuffle. Fun song. And I do remember hearing it on the radio. Apparently it was a hit in France, but I couldn't find any chart stats for it in North America. So.
I didn't know that they were still producing music at this point in time. 15-year-old me would not have been into that.
Not have been into Toto.
No. Mm-hmm. No, not at all. So number 5, I have Annie Lennox, who had her album Diva, came out in April of 1992, and I don't have the CD for this, but it had Why and Walking on Broken Glass, which I picked as my single here, and it was number 1 in Canada, number 14 on Billboard, and again, it had a really great music video.
Who was in it? There was a lot of famous.
There certainly were. It was
John Malkovich. Was Hugh Laurie in it?
Hugh Laurie was in it.
And
with the costumes, everything was pretty fabulous.
This was her first solo album, post-Eurythmics too. What was the other song that was big on this? Little Bird?
I don't know if this... It came out similar time period. I don't know if
Right.
it was on the album or not.
So next now we're getting into territory that's familiar for me. At this time, they were still one of my favorite bands, and they'd been on hiatus for quite a while. Two of the two main guys in the band both released solo albums, and there was speculation as to whether there would be another album, and there was. In the fall of '92, Bon Jovi came back with their fifth album, Keep the Faith. And this was a little bit different for them. They somehow successfully changed with the times and became the only band of their era to maintain their high standing on the charts, even if eventually they would get into territory that I wasn't so much a fan of, but I've gone into that many times. As for this album, a lot of people didn't like this album that liked their previous albums. I still like this album. It is a little bit different. There was a little bit of R&B put into it. There's actually some surprisingly heavy songs on here, but I'm talking about the title song, which was the first single released. And it went to #1 on Billboard Mainstream Rock, went to number 29 on the US Billboard Pop charts, and it actually went to #5 in Canada. And it was on this tour that I saw the band twice, my first two concerts. And the first one in Portland, Maine, actually met John Bon Jovi, which was huge to have a first concert like that, one of my favorite bands, and meet the front man and get his autograph. And but yeah, this is kind of an R&B based song. It's an awful lot of fun on the drums. Not that I can play it, but the fact that it did better in Canada than it did in the States, that's happened a few times on here, and there'll be some other examples of that too. Next, we have another CD for Sarah.
Where did this one come from?
This is Marley's.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't recall having it. So #4, I have R.E.M, and the single is Drive, and it's from the album Automatic for the People, which came out in October of '92. I'll let you hold it up if you would like. So the single only reached number 28 on Billboard, but it was a #1 on the modern rock chart.
This was a big album for them too. I mean, it had Everybody Hurts, it had Man on the Moon.
Both of which I like.
The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight. I think that was a single too.
I don't recall that, but I think the Sweetness Follows, I think, was on a soundtrack later.
Again, this is a very 90s looking CD. Just writing everywhere. This was the follow-up to Out of Time, which was I think a lighter album. This is a much darker album, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Darker subject matter.
Darker, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I would agree with that. It's still...
There's no shiny, happy people on here.
No. Well, I mean, we don't know. Have you listened to the whole album?
I have not. I can guarantee you I have not.
We were basing it on Everybody Hurts, etc.
Yeah.
I've always really loved the single Drive. It is kind of moody.
It also seems to me that the title of this came from a restaurant in their hometown of Athens, Georgia.
Really?
That was their slogan, Automatic for the People.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what this is on the cover. Anybody know? I don't know. I'm not up on... I'm more of an REO guy than R.E.M.
No.
Okay, next. Next one. I think one of the best rock singles to come out in '92 came from this album, Extremes, 3 Sides to Every Story, released in the fall of '92, or at least late summer. And the first single was called Rest in Peace. And this song went to #1 on the Billboard Rock chart, mainstream rock, went to 96 on the pop chart, and number 13 in the UK. Again, I can't find a Canadian listing for it. I'm guessing it did a lot better. This was the follow-up to Pornograffiti, which they had 2 hits off of More Than Words and Wholehearted, and the success of those songs kind of cast them in this light of, oh, they're going to do acoustic songs now. This album, like all the Extreme albums, has a little bit of everything. It's all got Nuno Betancourt's amazing guitar playing, Gary Cherone on vocals. This album went gold, and it went platinum in Canada. It didn't do quite as well as their previous album, but it's actually broken up into 3 parts, Yours, Mine, and The Truth. And so it's the first part's kind of more heavier songs. The middle part is sort of more, I don't know what you'd call it, mellower. And then The Truth kind of, it's a little Beatles-esque, a little psychedelic, a little bit of everything. But Rest in Peace was just a good song. And also, you may remember the video to the song. There are 2 videos for it. It's a completely white background. The band is playing But in one version of the video, there's scenes from this short film called, I think it was called Neighbors, where it's got these really fast cuts of these two people, these two neighbors that are fighting. They actually get sued by the filmmakers, and so now there's also a video with just the band footage. But I think that was overturned. I'm not sure, but that's my next one.
Interesting. So there were no other big singles?
Well, there were two other singles, both great songs, Stop the World, and one that I absolutely love, Tragic Comic. Tragic Comic should have been a big hit single. It's a fun song about a guy that's nervous on a first date, and it's acoustic based, and but it just wasn't their time anymore. So even though they weren't a hair metal band, they were a little bit off the beaten path of that. That's one of the things that kind of made them unique. But like I said, they have a following to this very day, and they're supposed to be putting a new album out sometime in 2022. We don't know when.
Okay. Number 3, I have Arrested Development from the album 3 Years, 5 Months, and 2 Days in the Life of, which came out in March of '92. And the song that I chose was People Every Day, which reached number 8 on Billboard. And we kind of had fun. Like, I wanted to revisit some of these songs. We were listening to it on the weekend.
And it didn't sound...
The first one I found didn't sound the way that I recalled it, because...
It was very slow.
It was much slower, and so somehow I found another version of it.
Yeah.
Which was the video version, I think, and that was the one that we both recalled.
Must have been the single version. I certainly wouldn't know what the album version sounded like. And of course, for people that don't know, the chorus samples Sly and the Family Stone's Everyday People.
It does, and there's like, I don't know, the vibe to it, I really enjoy it. And of course, the other singles would have been Mr. Wendell and Tennessee,
yeah,
which I enjoyed too.
Next one is a band that was kind of on a bit of a comeback, at least musically, in 1992. A band that I didn't get into for another year, but band is Kiss, and the album is Revenge. This came out in May or June of 1992, and this was the first album that Eric Singer was on drums. Eric Carr passed away the previous year, same day as Freddie Mercury, unfortunately. It's kind of a dark stat. And with this album, they kind of got more serious about making an album that was good all the way through. That's the general consensus. And the song I picked was Domino, which is a fun Gene Simmons song, and it reached number 26 on the mainstream rock chart. This album went gold. It wasn't a huge album, but they also stopped dressing in the multicolored clothing, and they it is definitely the coolest they looked as an unmasked band. You know, just basically black leather. It was the whole thing. And but Domino made it into set lists long after this came out, so I could have picked a lot of songs in this album. That's the one I decided to go with. Oh, now we're getting fun.
Oh, this is more fun?
Not that it's all been fun, but this is fun music here.
Sure. Number 2, I have On Vogue, the single. Well, I like both. I wrote 2 down, though Tim tried to pin me down, I think, to pick one only. This is from the Funky Divas album, which came out in March of 1992. So I have Free Your Mind here as well, because I love it. And it combines rock with some R&B. It's fun. The video was a lot of fun. But the other one that I really have always loved, My Love and You're Never Gonna Get It, which peaked at number 2 on Billboard.
I wonder what kept that at the top spot, because that was just one of those songs that was unstoppable.
Probably my number 1.
I thought that was later.
Was it?
Yeah. Don't know.
I don't know. Probably Mariah Carey or somebody.
I bet it was Vanessa Williams or somebody like that.
Somebody, one of these songs that Tim would not have enjoyed then or now.
I have a weird memory of the Funky Divas album. I remember, I think when John and Chad and I were in Fredericton at Zeller's, and they had tapes and CDs on display, and they had a tape of that was reversed, and I looked at it, and there was no tape inside of it. And I actually took it up to the counter. I said, you might as well send this back, because there's no tape inside of it. Just 2 reels.
Bizarre.
Just ran off from the factory that way. So number 2. So at this time, sort of neck and neck with Bon Jovi as my favorite band, would definitely have been Def Leppard. And Hysteria came out in 1987, took about a year to catch on, and they toured about a year for it, and it was spring of 1992 before they came out with another album. Another tragic death was the death of guitarist Steve Clark in January of 1991. So they recorded this album, the most of it, as a four-piece. And the album is Adrenalize, continuing sort of the same color pattern as Hysteria. And as they did with Hysteria, all of the singles sort of incorporated elements of this. It wasn't exactly the puzzle that Hysteria was. Now, the first single and the first song on this album was Let's Get Rocked, which... admittedly, even at the time, like I said, the rock music was sort of changing, and I remember liking it, but thinking, man, this is silly. I don't know if this is the right song to put it at the right time. It ended up being a hit almost in spite of itself, went all the way to number 12. That's not actually the song I'm picking. The song I'm picking has always been my favorite song from this album, is Stand Up, Kick Love into Motion, which reached number 1 on mainstream rock, only went to number 34 in the US, which is not surprising given the time period, but went all the way to number 11 in Canada. And this song to me is prime Def Leppard. Could have come off side 2 of Hysteria. I think it was written around the same time. It's in the same vein as Photograph and Armageddon. And to me, it's just quintessential Def Leppard song. And it's always been my favorite on this album. This album always struck me as a little bit, I don't know, Hysteria is my favorite album of all time. This album is certainly good, but it didn't have as many songs on it. It only had 10 songs on it as opposed to 12. One of the songs, Tear It Down, was a re-recording of one of their B-sides. I just thought they should have put out a little bit more after such a long absence. But what I like on here is, is really good. And of course, there's these strange photos inside of them. It's just a four-piece. They would very soon get Vivian Campbell on second guitar for the tour, and the lineup's been intact ever since. So I guess that's my number 2 for 1992.
Okay.
Which means that this is the big one. You talked about this, even though you said you didn't put these in any order. You talked about this song probably more than the rest, I think.
Probably.
So this is definitely one that...
This, for me, yeah. So Boyz II Men, End of the Road, which spent 13 weeks at number 1 on the Billboard charts. And Tim's allowing me to... He remembered, I didn't, that this was also on the Boomerang soundtrack, which came out in the summer of '92.
That's one when Eddie Murphy had this string of movies that flopped at the box office. That was
he did.
One of them.
And I really wanted the single on here because it was number 1 for a reason. It's very catchy. I think you probably even know quite a few of the words. Do you? No.
We've come to the end of the road. Still, I
Sure.
can't let go.
I still remember
It's
all the
so
words.
natural.
And it's so fun.
Awesome
to sing
harmonies.
to.
Awesome harmonies.
Well, of course, it's
Yeah, it's
Boyz II
Boyz II
Men.
Men, yeah.
But I have fond memories of it, probably a little bit later, once I did get my driver's license, which you can get at 16 in Canada. And I remember driving around with my friends, just with this on blast, and singing along. And we would have had it probably on cassette tape, because I think I had the cassette single for this.
This would have been the era.
Way back when. And yeah, just loved it. Could I sing? No.
That's not the point.
That's not the point. I wish that I could.
So the song I picked is number 1. Like I said, I didn't necessarily put them in order, but I think it's important to put this here because this was a significant one. It was actually a relatively newer band, even though this was their second album. A band that sort of reintroduced progressive rock for a younger audience. They took the best of bands like Rush and Yes and Kansas, but primarily they were following in the footsteps of bands like Queensryche, maybe a little bit of Iron Maiden too. And I'm talking, of course, about Dream Theater. And this is their second album, Images and Words, released in 1992. I'm getting quite a glare off of that. I guess I'm still getting a glare off of that. Well, so the first track on this, Pull Me Under, it's 8 minutes and 11 seconds on the album. There's a heavily edited version, which I've never been a fan of, but the heavily edited version made the video, and it got so much play that it actually went all the way to number 10 on the Billboard mainstream rock charts, which is quite something, given the era. Elaborate guitar solos and intricate arrangements, soaring vocals weren't exactly the thing in 92, 93 when the song made its impact. So the fact it went all the way to number 10 means it really translated to a larger audience. Images and Words to this day, I think, is the only Dream Theater album that went gold. And they themselves have fun with the fact that they had this top 10 rock single, because in 2008, when they put their best of out, they actually called it Greatest Hit and 21 other pretty cool songs. So they acknowledge that this is their calling card song and will always be. And I wasn't into it at the time. I got into the band about 2 or 3 years later, and I've followed them ever since. So that is our look at some of our favorite singles to come out in the year 1992, which somehow managed to be is 30 years ago, which is crazy. What are some of yours out there? Tell us in the comments. And Sarah, thank you very much for sitting in with me.
Look, I don't know how I managed it either. We'll be having Sarah on some at least one more episode throughout the year, and it was a lot of fun doing this one. So hope everybody enjoyed it. What are your favorite singles from 1992? Let's hear about them. Thanks for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions.